I'm a cop, and I just went through something I can't explain. I was called out for a wellness check with my partner last month. The home was in the middle of an upper middle-class neighborhood. Everything was in full bloom. Trees lined the still street and the sidewalks buckled and erupted in several places from tree roots pushing them upwards. Vibrant lawns everywhere. The only thing aged and weathered in the entire neighborhood were the painted address numbers on the curbs next each driveway. Lots of money on that side of town. The house was an old craftsman two-story. Most of the houses were. All the window shades were pulled and the car that was in the driveway had spider webs along the wheels and a thick layer of dust over the windshield. The landscaper had called in because the owner had not been seen in 2 weeks. The owner was an elderly man who lived alone. After knocking on the door several times, we walked around the house. The landscaper had only been charged with maintaining the front of the house. The backyard was nothing like the front. The lawn was completely overgrown. The flower beds were full of brilliant colors of flowers. Weeds had started to infest all of the flower beds and were beginning to take over. Several trees were in the yard, shading over half of it. Lots of flies and other insects were buzzing in and out of the shadows. They were so loud. Right in the middle of the lawn, there was a blue tarp that was staked down on all 4 corners. A muddy shovel lay next to the tarp. My partner walked over and pulled up one of the stakes and peeled part of the tarp back. Over a dozen spots of fresh dirt, a small hole, and several areas of newly seeded grass were underneath. He jumped backward and started swatting at his pants legs as he ran over to the patio. He said he felt them crawling all over his legs. He started stamping his feet. I watched the tiny bugs fall off of his legs onto the hot concrete and then skitter and jump as quickly as they could back into the shelter of the thick shady lawn. We knocked on the back door and found that it was open. As we walked inside, my partner kept swatting at his legs as I yelled out that we were police just doing a wellness check. All the lights were off. The kitchen and the laundry room were perfectly clean and organized, with the exception of a thin layer of white dust with thousands of tiny black specks on every surface. The dust had a faint chemical odor. We realized that it was all over the floor as well. The thousands and thousands of black specks amongst the white dust were tiny dead bugs. They looked like mosquitoes without wings, just like the ones that were on my partner in the backyard. We turned on every light as we walked through the home. The white powder was spread over every floor, although we couldn't see any of the bugs if they were present due to the nap of the carpet. We continued through the home until we found the old man in the bathroom. There were a variety of smells inside that turned our stomachs and we were fighting back the urge to vomit. When we turned on the lights, we saw the old man naked on the toilet. His head hung down and he wasn't moving. There were several bottles of iodine in the wastebasket and a dried-out sponge was in the sink that was covered in it. The old man had smeared it over the entirety of his body, and it had stained the porcelain bowl underneath him. His skin was raised around his feet and ankles, and several places on his abdomen were broken out in bites. I put on latex gloves before I would even touch him. His pulse was very weak. My partner called in an ambulance. I turned toward the shower. There was a towel covering something next to the drain. I opened the glass door. I meant to slowly raise the towel, but as I moved it slightly, several of those small bugs ran across my glove. I reacted suddenly, and the towel was flung against the back wall of the shower. I closed the shower door and smashed the things on my glove. The towel had been covering a large mass of bugs that began to jump and skitter as they were exposed to the light. Most of them crawled down into the darkness of the drain, while a small few were jumping back and forth against the glass of the shower door. On the bottom of the shower were the remains of something that looked like a baby. The bugs must have been feeding on it. My partner and I both began to back out of the bathroom and the old man made a noise. We both witnessed several patches of skin on the old man that seemed to quiver and move. The thin skin of his temples rose and fell as something underneath was moving. The old man raised his head, and his breathing increased. He stared at both of us. It's not me. Both of us were dumbstruck and had no idea of what to do. Then one of those damn bugs crawled out of the corner of his eye and ran across his face. I'm not proud. Neither was my partner. We got the fuck out the house. We were not going to go back in there unless we were wearing some sort of protective gear. On our way out, I noticed that the thousands of black specks spread out in the white powder in the kitchen were gone, and as we ran past the back lawn, we could both see thousands of the things jumping within the grass. My partner continued to feel the bugs crawling on him for the rest of our time there despite there being none that I could see. It's been several weeks since the incident. The old man died in the hospital, organ failure after severe dehydration. The investigation found that it was a baby in the shower. There was no evidence of trauma present. When the backyard was inspected, the tarp was removed and several more bodies were found that had been buried within the last 6 months, and again, no evidence of trauma was present. All of the bodies were babies, and all of the DNA testing came back the same for every single one of them. Identical. They were all genetically identical to each other and to the old man. Not a single bug was found that matched our descriptions, although a fair amount of excrement was detected in the carpets. All of this is public record, although it hasn't been reported, which to say the least, is very unusual. My partner has been institutionalized by his wife. She found him in his work in the middle of the night, taking a wire brush to himself, swearing that the bugs were hiding in his skin. Thanks for tuning into Reality Narratives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. I'd love to hear what you think, so drop a comment below and let me know what intrigues you or what spine-chilling tales you'd like me to cover next. Make sure to check out my other videos for more eerie mysteries and thrilling encounters. Stay subscribed because more spine-tingling content is coming your way. Until then, keep the suspense alive.